So yeah. Feet hip width apart and have your weight just settling in. Take your time, even though you're probably in a warmer place. The cold does make us sort of hunch up and so on. So try and have the intent, the idea that you're doing Tai Chi, of course, and it's obvious really, but what that means in terms of the sensations and feelings within your body, whatever associations you make with it. Between that and the sort of technical side of where your weight is in your feet, what your hips are doing, so on and so forth, gradually settling in. Nice loose feeling as you turn around the center line of your body. It feels right, just allowing the momentum, the range of your movement to pick up. Often use the image of moving through water. You can also think of moving like water, and that can be useful with this idea of just gradually pushing out the range of your movement in the way that water might sort of erode and dissolve away the soil around it when it's moving. Be aware of any sort of tightness, any kinks. Quite often when I start up, I'm doing this, oh, there's a bit there, and so on and so forth. And just giving them time to loosen up, to open up. Let you breathe in. Notice whether there's anything particularly in the front of your body, belly, solar plexus, chest, that might be sort of restricting your breathing. We often have the habit of sort of pulling our belly in or tightening our chest, our shoulders. One hugely significant thing, of course, is just whether we're able to find the alignment with the pull of gravity and the rooting down, the dropping of our center of gravity. To remove one of the key sources of that stiffness, that tightness, not the only one by any means. It doesn't mean that your body's suddenly going to become miraculously loose. Feel the strength of the movement in your legs. Very much turning from hips and waist at this point. You may find there's a slight turn there, that you turn and then this goes a little bit further in your shoulders. The variant on this is to bounce up and down. Well, you can see that I'm just sort of shaking, bouncing up and down in my hips. Some people find this is a good way of actually getting the weight to settle. I guess it's a bit like, you've got a sack full of something like leaves or something like that. You might shake it down to create a bit more space. Try and feel that shaking up into your ribs and your shoulders. And as your arms swing around, the top of your arm, above your elbow, will at some point just come against your body. And at that point, what we want to try and do is to keep the elbow loose, let our arms swing up. So gradually, hands coming up towards the shoulders and then down again. I generally do this with slightly cupped hands, but if you prefer, you could do it with hands loosely fisted, slightly stronger movement. So hopefully you have a sense of what is appropriate at the moment. It's also a good exercise for developing that sort of springy feeling in our legs that we want to try and make use of. And then hands resting here, just above your hips, and pressing in slightly if you can. Try and use the palms of your hands, but if that's uncomfortable, fists one way or another, or maybe just one hand swapping over occasionally, still bouncing up and down. Really feeling that movement, obviously very much in your lower back and kidneys. And just loosen your shoulders. Try and get a bit of your spine also developing a sort of springy, shaking quality. And just let your hips drop down and keep them down now, raising your arms a little. Just get a sense again for how high it's appropriate to go. Your hands shouldn't come above shoulder height for this one, but they may be lower, so you can just play around with that. And maybe even just moving up and down. And this is quite interesting if we do this, because as we do this, we can notice changes in our back and our sides and the front of our body. This helps us to just develop this essential idea in Tai Chi of connection through the body. Move one part of your body and other parts of your body are also engaged in that movement. And then just let your hands drop down. Stand for a moment in this posture. Hips dropping back. Try not to push your knees back. So knees above the balls of your feet. Hips above your ankles. Pelvis hanging loose. And then just letting your hips drop back and pushing up. Expanding. Contracting your arms, coming around as though they're cradling the ball. An expansion in your body, like a wave coming up, pushing your arms up, and then as though you're pushing the ball down into water. Trying to keep a nice steady flow and rhythm in the movement. And just be aware of this, the sensations as you drop. So, you know, where do you feel your body releasing? Where do you feel that kind of tightening? Those are the areas where, one way or another, we want to look for that releasing feeling. It might be that just taking our attention to that area with this image. If I grip my fingers tight here, it's quite tight there, it's quite painful, it's not uncomfortable in my wrist, or I can open out. This opening out feeling is what I mean by releasing. If that doesn't work, then it might be that you want to just sort of think about, if it's your lower back, are you doing something in your posture that causes that tightening? Again, another way of approaching that is just to think in terms of the fluidity of the movement washing over that area. All of these ideas can be useful. Which is actually useful at any particular time is another matter. It's what's working for you at this moment. But it's worth practicing these ideas. So that, you know, it's a bit like if you've got a tool shed and various tools in it, it's quite a good idea to work out how to use them before you need to use them. And changing the wild goose. And then parting the clouds. And then Dragon plucks the stars from the sky, feeling the expansion through one side. Sometimes it might be easier to focus on one side or another. This exercise can help with that. Although we want to develop an all-round sense of what's happening in our body and mind, that's quite a difficult thing to sustain. So focusing on one side or one part of your body through a particular exercise can be a useful thing. Eventually, these things become more habitual. That all-round awareness is something that gradually grows. You just realise, people report back to me that they're walking down the street and they're suddenly more aware of how they're walking or how they're standing in the supermarket, and even how other people are moving, or watching a football match on television, and just that much more aware of movement. And this is a natural outcome for the practice, I think you'll find. And it's like becoming aware of anything else. If you start to notice the flowers grown in the gardens around you or in the cracks in the pavement, you just become more aware of them over a period of time, kind of sub rather than unconscious awareness, shall we call it. One more. Just standing and thinking about this turning movement in the middle of your body. If you look at what I'm doing at the moment, if I put my hand on my belly so you can see, my shoulders stop moving at the same time that my hand stops. Over a period of time, you may find that you can go a little bit further without that sort of tightening up in your back and your sides. But this is what you should be thinking of. And it's not a very big movement at this point. But by the time it reaches your hand, I'll put my hand out here, just that little bit of movement without any need to sort of pull on my shoulders in any way, produces quite a significant movement in my hand. So my hand is straight out there. I move a little bit in the center of my body. Look how far my hand has moved. From here, I do the same thing, and again, my hand has moved a great deal. It's like a bicycle wheel with the spokes. The spokes nearest the hub of the wheel, nearest the center, hardly move. The other end, they move a great deal. So hands at your sides of your body and pressing up, hips dropping back, still. Nice long feeling in your back, soft in your knees. We want our center of gravity to drop so that the movement in our hips feels nice and loose and free still. We don't want it too loose though. Try and use that image of moving through water, or be aware of the elasticity through your body. Tendons, ligaments, muscles and fascia between them reach every part of your body pretty much. And they all have the potential for this springiness, this elasticity. And our bodies naturally link up, coordinate, if you like. We don't generally needs a telemuscle to expand or contract or whatever. We work from the idea of intent. We give an instruction, lift your arm up, and body does it. So we're not trying to dictate every single action to our intent. It's a kind of broader palette than that. Come around. And then focusing once again just on one side. Let your arms drop down. Feel the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders. The next expansion pushes your arm out on one side. Arm is slightly curved so it swings up. And then straight down the center line of your body. Nice smooth action in your shoulder. When you push your arm out, try not to lift the shoulder up. Just let your shoulder drop down and let the arm swing up. Again, a nice loose feeling. We don't want to put pressure on our joints simply through moving. Try, and if you can, to just retain that sense of what's happening in your feet and your hips. And indeed, especially as you turn this time, noting any kind of change. Can you, for instance, when you turn, feel what's happening in your legs and your knees? What you don't want to do is this, turn and let the knees twist in like this. So again, you make sure that you're turning from your hips and so on. And then change sides. And then it's comfortable with the turn. Rowing a boat in the middle of the lake, pushing up. hips going back. And then polishing the table, turning first and then pushing your hips back. I'm exaggerating the turn a little bit, so my hips are going out of line. Again, you shouldn't need a big movement here. One more time. And then. So this elasticity, this springiness, however you care to think about it, that builds through the body is one of the outcomes of the posture and the intent to move without straining. So it's one of the key things in the development of what we call internal strength. And it's important to distinguish between what we refer to as internal strength and what we normally think of as that. We're not talking about rock hard muscles or anything like that, but rather the strength is the strength of water rather than iron, I suppose you could say. And when these different parts of the body, muscle, tendon, ligament, fascia, and maybe other parts as well, maybe even the bones themselves, develop this springiness, which can take a while to do. It depends on sort of what's brought us here, really. Then we actually begin to feel the whole body working together. If you think about something like a bow that you might fire an arrow from, it's not just the string, it's not just the bow itself. It's the combination of the different components of the bow and the string working together and all releasing at the same time. So it's that kind of image that we're looking for. Our awareness is a key part in developing that, because it sometimes feels as though it's our awareness of what's going on that kind of binds all these things together. And as I said before, this is very much a concept that comes from the martial side of Tai Chi. It's significant to us in all sorts of ways. Then there's the movement itself. And again, if you imagine that water is a powerful medium. And so if you're moving with this quality of water, that too lends a strength to us. And that's where the flow of the movement, of course, becomes important. Now, starting with your feet together, turning your toes out, pushing your heels out, and then turning your toes out again, and just sink down. Allowing your pelvis to drop. If you find this pulling on your knees, make it slightly narrower. But remember that the bigger space here allows for more efficient dropping down. So it's worth practicing this. It will condition your legs, of course, and moving from side to side. So we're going to be doing part of the wild horse's mane and wide taper his foot. Both of these involve a sideways movement, but it's only really about 60% of your weight moving across. So one reason for having the wider stance to do them in is so that you actually get a bit more movement. The narrower stance, 60% is hardly anything at all. It's hard to register. Whereas in this wider stance, we at least have time to notice the change from one leg to another. Now you move into your left and you turn, and your hips and your shoulders, or at least your shoulders and this line across your body here is more accurate to say, are facing the direction of your foot. And then further. Now again, what you may find is that after a while you can get here and just turn a little bit further without there being a pull in your back or your sides. I'm fine here. If I go to here, I can feel the gripping starting. So use your own judgment to work that out. Hands in front of you, just resting for the moment. Trying to get your weight to drop down into your foot and just noticing if there's any resistance to that, particularly in your knees. Go into your right, turn your right hand palm down, going into part in the wild horse's mane. Just letting your bottom hand swing out, powered, if you like, think of it like that, by the transfer of your weight and the turn in the center of your body, very soft in your shoulders. And get a feeling of your arm moving through water, cutting through water. Palm up, yeah. So a feature of this is that in this position here, just come into your left, hold the position for a moment, feel that opening down diagonally across your body, like you've stretched out an elastic band. When you come back, that contracts in. Same thing on this side, of course. Back. Now, coming to here, rest your weight in the left leg, but still feel the contraction. Let that pull your shoulder and, of course, your arm across. Drop your right elbow down. Turn your right hand palm in. Imagine it's stuck in mud. Pull up slightly and drop down into your right foot. Turn towards your left foot, holding a ball and push forward. This is wide tape off the foot. Coming over, drop your right hand down, draw back into your left. The same thing on the other side. Feel the opening and then the contraction. So what your body does to help that. The fruit is a peach, so you might want to imagine holding the peach between your hands. I'm going to exaggerate something. So here, I'm turning to my right. My arm goes right out there. You can see the direction of my body. But as I feel the contraction, my body turns a little bit. Then as I pull back, that movement pulls my arm over, and I turn again to your left. So there's big movements and small movements alternating here. Here's a big movement. This is a little bit smaller. You may even feel a little bit of a turn here as you go back towards the left, but then you turn forwards to here. It's quite interesting to move from large to small like this, to feel the changes within your body. Once again, just training ourselves really to recognize the different styles, different types of movements, circular movements, opening, closing, large movements, small movements. As you become more familiar with the set, then you'll find that more and more. So why tape off the screw? One more round. Feel right foot forwards, hip width across the feet, about the same in length. And begin to transfer your weight. Now the weight change, go to about 60% in your back foot, maybe up to 70% in your front foot. But just see if that awareness of those small changes and movements within your body that you hopefully got a sense for in the previous exercise remains, so that you begin to notice more of what's going on. You might, for instance, notice that as you go back, your body turns a little. Ideally, we're facing the front, but there's all sorts of reasons why that turning might take place. Little changes. Again, are you able to get that sense of your weight dropping into your foot, not stiffening in your knee? Can you feel that sort of springiness in your leg developing? This is like the bow in the bow and arrow, which can shoot out the punch or something like that. So although these exercises aren't directly martial exercises in their own right, they do enable us to explore some of the principles that are used in the martial side of Tai Chi, and they're not just about fighting. The way that we use the body, the softening of the body, the springiness that we develop, are things that ideally we will find it useful in our daily life. It's a more efficient, a kinder way, in many ways, of actually using the body. Raising your toes and your heel, the more of your weight begins to settle into the supported foot. I've turned my front foot out to help that process. Really taking your time here, settling down. And then stepping in. Again, your leg contracts. Imagine pushing on a spring and then feeling the expansion. Good and shake out. With that springiness, grab my little friend here. See, can't really see it that well. He's got a nice cheery face. So if I push down on that, then there's a push up. You see him shaking, or her. If I pull, there's a contraction. If I push to one side, it springs up, and so on and so forth. And so the springiness in our legs, in our spine, and eventually in our arms can be seen in a little bit like that. And again, there's a strength there when they work together, but not just a strength for sort of delivering a punch or something like that, but just to enable us to walk down the road more efficiently and so on. So have your left foot forwards. So one of the things that we look to do is to actively try and relax in muscles like the quadriceps, the hamstrings at the back of the legs, and other big muscles in the body, which is quite a difficult thing to do because we habitually tense them up. But in doing that, it feels as though the movement becomes deeper, and we start to also affect what is sometimes referred to as skeletal muscles, tendons and ligaments become involved. Beginning to raise your toes and your heel. And then stepping in. And then stepping forward. So settle into your front foot, bring your rear foot through, plant it down, and see if you can feel that little push that builds from the back foot. So take your time, just sometimes we need to wait a few moments to really feel that. And then going in the other direction. Good, and shake out. Have your right foot forwards again. Drop into your back foot. Fold your hands over your belly. Ease forward, sink into your front foot, pushing your arms out, bring your chest open. Pigeon spread its wings. And ease back. From here, you can see as I come to here, there's a slight sort of opening outwards as the chest fills up. But don't overdo it. Don't start doing that. It's like this pigeon chest type thing. But don't pull your belly in when you do this. Now changing, let your hands drop down. So the weight of your arms again hanging from your shoulders. Fisherman castanet. And then pushing wave. Again, your arms gently curve up. Effectively, that spring in the back leg pushes your body forwards, pushes your arms forward, but because they're attached to your shoulder, inevitably they're going to come upwards. This time, settle back into your left foot. Turn towards your right foot and just let the expansion push your arms out, similar to the wild goose, but not coming up and down. Into your right foot and turn. The wind blows the willows. Remember what I was saying about how far we turn. If you try too hard to turn, pull your arms around, you'll end up leaning over, and that will make the next bit quite difficult. Because now you're going to raise your toes, your heel. So then as you settle into your rear foot, bring the front foot in as you turn, and from here you can leave it down here, you can raise it up, or you can raise it up and at the same time rotate your hip like you're chipping a football up in the air. That last is quite difficult, quite strong in the tendons, so go easy with it. Raise the foot. Oops, try not to do that. There you go. And then if it's comfortable, just rotate. But do whichever works best for you at this particular time. Try and soften your hip. Don't strain in your hip. Because what will happen is what happened to me a moment there. If I strain my hip, now I'm offline. So you know, this could be quite a powerful movement, kicking a ball up in the air, for instance. Using here the elasticity. I've opened out on the inside of the leg and I let that come through with the contraction. We don't want to block that. Shake out. When we stiffen up, we sort of block that elastic process. Now then, have your left foot forward and start with pigeon spreads its wings again. And then fisherman castanet. Push away. We're very much working with the natural patterns and ways of moving that our body has evolved, not against them. We're not trying to force the body to do anything, for want of a better term, unnatural. And that too is one of the sort of strengths, I think, in Tai Chi. Like if you're going to chop a piece of wood, you'll get further if you chop with the grain rather than across it. One more. Wind blows the willows. Yeah, remember to just try and observe those small changes and movements within your body. Which ones are regular, which ones just pop up every now and then. Raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in with whichever sort of way of moving the empty leg works best for you. And then step forwards or backwards wherever you've got the space. Ease your foot back. One more time. Bring your feet back out. And shake out. Rubbing your hands together. Tap over your face. Over your head and neck. One shoulder. Your arm. The other side. Your back. Your hips. Light on your belly. The upper part of your chest. Give your legs a shake again. Okay, so coming back to the standing position. Parallel. And just let your hips drop back again. And then embrace tiger, return to mountain. Your body extends and contracts. More of the emphasis on the contraction, but still we can feel that elastic, springy quality working. One more time. And stand. Shake out. Gosh, that went quickly today. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for watching. So